Ethereum 2 is this big sprawling effort to mainly make two upgrades to Ethereum. One of them is switching the consensus from proof of work to proof of stake, which we believe to be much more energy efficient, much less tree killing, require much less issuance and all of those things, and at the same time more secure than proof of work. So this is actually something I wrote a blog post about, like one of the most recent ones on Vitalik.ca talks about this. And the other big piece is Sharding, which is a scalability upgrade. That basically means that you don't need every node to process every transaction anymore. You kind of split up the load much more, and this way we could increase the blockchain's throughput from around 15 transactions a second to many thousands or tens of thousands of transactions per second. So the Ethereum 2 roadmap is split into different stages or parts. Again, we at the beginning called them phases. I think recently we've been de-emphasizing the phase branding a bit because it's becoming kind of more parallelized, and all the pieces are being built in a kind of, they can be implemented when they're ready, regardless of what the other pieces are doing kind of format. But the very first phase 0, this is the launch of the proof of stake beacon chain, basically just a proof of stake chain, just maintaining consensus on itself, running kind of independently from, but hooking into the ETH1 blockchain. This is something that, from a technical perspective, is basically just completely ready, and it is out there, right? Like the thing that it's waiting for is that right now there is this contract on the Ethereum blockchain called a deposit contract, where people can send in 32 ETH in order to become Ethereum validators. Or once the amount of ETH in the contract reaches 524,000, then the beacon chain kind of officially kicks off, right? So right now I think it's at about 100,000, and it's basically just sitting there for more people to stake. So once that number gets above 500, then the chain launches, which is really exciting. And so we see this proof of stake system running as a main network for the first time. Obviously it's been running as a test network quite successfully for several months. So after that phase 0, the next major pieces of work are, and there's a lot of like minor improvements we want to make that we wants to make now that we just couldn't fit into the spec in time. So light client support, some efficiency improvements, some other things. But then there's also sharding, and the other big piece is the piece that we call the merge, or we sometimes call docking, which basically just means taking the entire ETH1 system and actually moving it on top of the ETH2 layer. And so we would basically get rid of proof of work, right? And kind of actually bring the ecosystem back into being this one chain that's entirely based on a proof of stake. So that's something that we're excited about, but it'll have to be a bit longer because not only does the merge have to be implemented, but the community has to be confident in the merge process. The community has to be confident in the Ethereum 2 chain itself. And so that will take some time, abandon the $50 billion base layer that they know and love and move to one that we consider better. But it's still a leap that people have to take, and we want to be mindful of people's desire to take that leap confidently and not too rashly. So that's kind of what's happening on the ETH2 side in the future. At the same time, there is also work happening on layer 2 scaling. So rollups have been all the rage over the last year or so. And rollups are this kind of interesting hybrid layer 2 technique. So we've been looking into layer 2 for a long time, right? We've been doing state channel work, which is kind of similar to the Bitcoin Lightning Network. We've been doing work on Plasma. Rollups are this interesting compromise where, unlike other layer 2 schemes, they do require a little bit of data on chain. They require about 16 bytes of data on chain for every transaction, which is basically just like a highly compressed version of who's sending it, who's the recipient, basically just the information needed to reconstruct the state, but not any signatures or any of the information needed to verify things. And it turns out that if you have that, then you can build a layer 2, which is much kind of conceptually simpler and it allows general purpose smart contracts. It's extremely powerful. You don't have to learn a new paradigm or learn a new language. It basically just behaves like almost a carbon copy of the Ethereum base layer itself.